Hey guys, welcome back, and in this video I want to take a look with you at the top 5 decks that you can use to climb to Master 1 in this month, September. And we recently got the new pack in which we have gotten the Purely cards and also the Mikanko cards. And spoiler alert, but I guess no big spoiler, one of the decks is also in the top 5, and I guess you already know which one. But let's start off here with our number 5, the Naturia Rune deck. And I've talked about this the last time in which I have ranked this deck. This deck has become way better now that Tier Elements is no longer in the meta, because you don't need to run the shufflers here, and that's not the point, because running the shufflers is not the big problem. But this had a really bad Tier Elements matchup because of all the grave interaction, the graveyard interaction that this had, and also this slow grindy game plan that this deck wants to play just wasn't really good enough to keep up with tier. So when this deck came out, I was really excited playing it, but unfortunately it wasn't good enough to really take it to the ladder and have a big success. So I think it's a great time now to play Naturia Runic. It will also still work, I think, when Kashtira comes out, though full power Kashtira that is, though then you will need some answers to the Riser, because otherwise every spell that you activate will go to the banished pile, and there they can't activate the effect, or they can't trigger the Runic Fountain, which obviously is a problem, because then you lose all your game plan, because then you're not able to reshuffle your cards. So this is basically a list that you can copy, can run. You can run all the basic engine stuff, and you have some flex spots like the triple tactics talents, though this is quite nice in this deck. You have something like the foolish burial goods that you can also flex out if you want to. You can use this as a starter for the Naturia Sacred Tree. I think against all the other decks that now come on the list, this has a nice matchup, and has a nice matchup in general, due to the fact that the Naturia engine is quite strong, but the Runic engine especially is one of the strongest engines in the game. As you can see here, there were many cards hit here, but this is still one of the strongest ones. You are even playing the Runic Golden Droplet, which is definitely the worst card in here, but you want to see a lot of Runic spells so you can shuffle back, gain advantage, and grind your opponent out through the long term. In the 4th spot, I have a deck that has not seen the light of day for a long time, but was at its peak point the best deck in the game until, I think it was until Sprite came out, and then Tier Elements, and then from the Bestials. The Bestials were the big problem for this deck, Mathematic, because the combo you can go for, the Mathematic Super Factorial combo, which rips 3 cards out of your opponent's hands, field, and then also the spell and trap card zone. It's super strong. You also have a negate on your Laplation afterwards if you could get your diameter under this, and then you have also follow up from your hand. Also, you're able to really effectively one-turn kill your opponent with the access code Talker and update Jammer package. I think every time that there are no big graveyard interruptions and there are not that much Bestials, this deck really shines, is really strong. You have to consider the fact that in TCG, for example, the Mathematic Circular, which is basically the 1-card starter of this deck, is at 1. So every card in here, the Sonic Mining, the Small World, all these cards are just in here to get to your 1-card starter, the Mathematic Circular. So you can go into the trap, can go into your Alambertion, and then into a Placian on your opponent's turn, or maybe even on your turn to rip a card out of his hand. This deck has it all. This deck can really easily OTK your opponent. You basically only need a Diameter or a Circular on your second turn to kill your opponent, and this deck can play through a lot of interruptions, even going second. If you have your Diameter, though, you would then need another Mathematic Engrave to be able to kill. The Circular could do it on its own, and you only need 3 Mathematic cards on the board to get into an access code Talker that can attack 2 times, and then kill your opponent. So this is really strong, one of the most strongest decks in the game, finally back. If you ever play it, enjoy it, because when full power Kashtira comes out, this deck will struggle again, because getting the cards to the banished pile instead of the graveyard is really bad for the deck. Though then you could, for example, play some Kaijus with these small world spells in here to search the Kaijus. You can search your Kaijus from your Effect Veiler. By the way, this list is a bit outdated, I would say. You could argue putting out an Effect Veiler and maybe... Yeah, you want at least 1 Kaiju, right? You want the Light Kaiju in here, because you can search the Light Kaiju with an Effect Veiler, and I also think you can search it with your Cybers monsters, because all of them are also light. So in case that your opponent summons a Ex Purely Noir on the field, then this is basically the only thing you can do to break the board, having a Kaiju, or you could also, of course, force your opponent to use the interrupts of the Noir. But I think adding a light Kaiju here is really nice. I'm not quite sure, you can't just type in Kaiju, right? I'm not quite sure, oh, you can, right? I'm talking about this Thunder King Kaiju, or I think there's another light one, the Jizukiro, that's right. So I would go for one of these. They work together with the engine, you can search them with the small word just to out your opponent's Expurli Noir. But other than that, this deck is quite strong. I also want to mention another deck that I will put here in the 4th spot, and that is Sword Soul. Just quick mention on the deck, I think this deck will also become worse once Full Power Kashtira comes out, but at the moment we are in a meta where the power level isn't that high, though we will talk about a deck in a moment that made it higher, but I think Sword Soul in this meta can really perform. It's an old proven deck that has, yeah, it just has plays that disable your opponent from playing. The start play with the Baron and the Shen Ying, it doesn't seem like much, but it's often enough to break your opponent, to stop him from being able to play. So Mathematic plays on place number 4, and also Sword Soul. Those are the decks I will put in number 4 for the Climb to Master 1 this season. And then as number 3 here, no big surprise, I think I have made a video about this topic, but I think Labyrinth is in a really good place. This is also because Telement left the meta basically, and Labyrinth has had a really bad Telements matchup, like really bad one. Once it came out, I was able to climb from Diamond 5 until Master 5 in a hurry, but then I was facing a lot of Telement players, and it was that extreme that I had to change the deck, because this deck wasn't really able to beat the Telement very consistently. Of course, you have something like Dimensional Barrier, but it was quite hard. And when Full Power Kashtira comes out, this deck will still be strong. You have your Terrors of the Overroot that you can use to battle against the Kashtira full power version. This deck can keep up with Kashtira quite well, I think. So all in all, this is really nice against all the decks that I have now on my list. You could also think about putting in the Virus if you are facing, I don't know, a lot of, for example, Naturia Runics. You might put in the Eradicator Epidemic Virus, or if you face a lot of Sprite opponents, then you could go with the Full Force Virus. So this is the nice thing about Labyrinth. You have this engine, or the engine that works quite well, and the engine alone is able to beat your opponent, but then you have a lot of flag spots when it comes to traps that you can just use. You can, for example, go Gozen Match or Rivalry of the Warlords, depending on what you see, right? Because if you see a lot of decks that have different attributes, so many Kashtira and even Kashtira Full Power, then you go Gozen Match. If there are a lot of decks that have different types, then you go and use your Rivalry of the Warlords. And I would suggest keeping the skill drain in here, because skill drain can just be win the game against most of the decks, because you have these big beatstick monsters. So yeah, Labyrinth Furniture, and also the normal Labyrinth version, but I think the Furniture one is the stronger one. Definitely a really nice deck, and my top 3. In second place, there's a deck that I really like a lot. I have played this a lot. I have used this for one entire climb, Dragon Link. This recently has gotten some new support cards in the Red Ice Black Meteor Dragon, which enables you to search another thing with your Black Metal Dragon, which this is quite nice. So you can now more effectively run this little Black Ice package here. You could go for 48 cards, you could also trim it down to 40, you can also play a 60 list, maybe with a grass, though I think the trimmed version, 40 cards, is the best one. You can play this Chaos Angel as a new card in here, but I think all in all this is a very solved deck. This is quite nice. Obviously, I have, for example, you can see it here, I have like put some of the Bestial engine out. I had 3 Baldrakes, 3 Saronir, and I have tuned this down to 1 and 2, because obviously this was really nice against Telements, and Telement is no longer in the meta. But the cool thing about Dragon Link there is that this is able to run the Bestials in engine, so you don't run them as a hand trap, because many other decks, for example Sprite, were running the Bestials as like hand traps, basically, not as part of their engine. This didn't really help their engine, but obviously, for example, Magnamood being able to search another dragon, or this one being able to send these cards and then have your Bestial Lobelion online and get more dragons to the field and get the Bestials back that you can then use for your other Link plays. Everything works well together between those two engines, and I think this deck is very consistent, can build awesome going first boards, can break going second boards quite effectively, but I think all in all it's a bit weaker than the deck deck that I have at the number 1 here, and I think it's no big surprise which deck will be number 1, but let's look at this. This is number 2 for this this month, and let's look at the first place in my list. So the first place, you might have already guessed it, goes to Purely, the new archetype that was added just yesterday. Maybe you have seen me stream. I had a 5-hour stream, a Purely stream. I also have made a guide on the deck already. It's linked in the upper right corner if you want to watch it and learn the deck. It's really fun, really nice deck. I think the artwork is quite cool, but you could argue about the artwork. Some people, I think, love it. Some people hate it. I like these little cats and the quick play spells. It's quite the difficult deck to learn and to master, but with a high ceiling, and you have this awesome Towers boss monster. Though I have to say, if people start running a lot of kaijus now, lava golem and stuff, because they are playing against a lot of Purely decks, then this deck might fall a bit, and you might want to change the deck up. If you play against a lot of opponents that have kaijus in the deck, then it might be time to slow down a bit on the Purely deck playing and maybe change the deck to a deck that is not that affected by kaijus. For example, Labyrinth is not that affected, if you want an example. So this is definitely the weak point of the deck. Also, Duel and Lockbird can be quite annoying, though keep in mind, just play your quick play spells in the draw or standby phase and you are basically safe from Duel and Lockbird. Though cards like your My Friend Purely or your Normal Summon Purely or Purely, you would need to go to your own main phase, and then you are basically not safe any longer. But I think that's quite clear. So I think the deck is really strong. The engine is quite nice. The ability to end on this really strong boss monster is very consistent, so it's not hard at all to end on this. It's not like, okay, I have to combo like through 10 minutes, and if I don't get interrupted and I am lucky, I can end on my really awesome Towers boss monster. Getting to X Purely Noir is quite easy, and remaking her is also easy. Also thanks to My Friend Purely, which will give you your cards back to once again start the grind. And then also the ability to use the Purely Happiness for a very effective 2-turn kill with basically 1 card. So in theory you only would need Purely, Purely into your My Friend, into your Happy, and then you can go for your Happiness and then attack and add the other cards to hand. So going first, the deck is awesome. Going second, the deck is awesome. It has access easy, the easiest access I have ever seen to a Zeus. So really strong going second, and going first struggles a bit against a meta in where there will be a lot of kaijus. So we will have to wait and see how this develops. If there are a lot of kaijus, then this deck might fall down a bit. Then a lot less people will play it, and then people will stop playing kaijus, and that's the development that this could take. In the TCG, it's the same with Branded Despia. Once Branded Despia is really good, everyone plays Ash Blossom. Here it's different because everyone is playing Ash Blossom all the time. But yeah, Purely the number 1 for this month. I think with this deck, if you have mastered it, if you have learned it and know how to play it, you will have one of the easiest climbs. But let me know in the comments, what do you think of my list? Where would you place these decks? Or maybe you have a different number 1, a different number 2. Let me know in the comments, and I wish you great luck with your climb this month, and we will see each other in the next one.